Pressure's on.
All right.
All right, Carl, take it away. Tell us about this listing clinic you've got
All
coming up.
right. So Tyler, I have till 5 o'clock. Is it right?
Yeah, you've had, yep, exactly.
All right. So I'm real excited about this. I was actually going to be coming out in March of 2020 to do Bold for the Utah region. And of course, we all know that we went into the COVID craziness and that didn't happen. And so one of the things that I wanted to do was connect back again because I had so many of great leadership that we engaged with getting ready for this. So when Johnny and I talked and Gordon and Jordan about kicking off a regional event that would be live, I thought this is great because we're all kind of getting back into the new normal. And of course, listings is always the key to our business. Now, if there's buyer's agents out here, don't fret. I'm not saying that buyer contracts aren't important. In fact, we should be getting buyer contracts off of our listings. However, listings are what generate those for most of us. I want to give you just really quick a little background. I joined KW in 2006 during the crazy time of the market crashing. And I spent 21 years in the consumer packaged goods industry. I was with Colgate-Palmolive. I was with S.C. Johnson and Del Monte Foods in consumer packaged goods marketing, sales, and training. I decided to go into real estate, and I literally got my license and walked out the door from corporate America and started knocking on doors 4 hours a day from 9 to 1. And I won Rookie of the Year for the whole company that year. And I had a big why. Big why was at-home mom and 2 kids. Anybody that has kids at home and an at-home mom, you know the fire's hot for making sure that you win. And so from there, I built my team. I grew a mega team. I took a team leader role at one point. I became a Bold coach, apps coach, master faculty instructor, and an OP of 2 market centers. And I went into the area director job and then the regional director job, just recently coming out of the regional director job to focus on 4 market centers as a GM and OP. So a lot of great experience in this awesome company. And so I'm excited to come out because when this whole thing started, Tyler, Gary said to us at the RD meeting, you need to ask your people, where do you want to be when we come out on the other side of this pandemic? Now, I don't know how hard hit you were in Utah. I'm assuming it was as crazy as it was in California and everywhere else. I thought that was a great question. And we posed that question to the region. And the second question was, what do you have to do to come out into first mover position when you actually come out on the other side? And that's a great question because a lot of people get really frustrated and they kind of sink and they've retracted. And you might know some agents that have really struggled or have been challenged in this time. So what's really cool about this is if you really want to come out of this and you really want a great business in the second half of 2021, and June 16th is when we do this, obviously, this is a great opportunity for you to jump in and to get 110% plugged in. In our listing clinic, we're going to talk about the strategies to get a listing in the market of the moment. We'll talk about scripts, we'll talk about dialogues, and right away I'm going to put a don't fret with that piece. I'm not a believer in just rattling off a bunch of words. Here's what I believe in my heart. When you make a script part of who you are, you internalize it, you customize it, Tyler, it becomes how you deal with the client. And scripts allow us to help navigate. The other thing we need to talk about is shifting our mindset back into a place where we go after listings and we're not afraid to move forward. First mover position means I want to be number one. And I'm sure that everybody in this room wants to be number one. So we will focus on strategies. We will focus on dialogues. We'll focus on scripts, and we'll go through the models that we have at KWRI that talk about how to build a strong listing business. So that's kind of the thought process here. I am in production, just like everybody else. I'm a regular guy. I'm not into fluff. I'm not into all kinds of stage dynamics. For me, this is a passion. I love what I do. I absolutely do. And I'm super excited about coming out and helping you guys drive a business. And if you're interested at all in building a business from a door knocking or farming standpoint, that's how I built my business. I'm happy to help you with it. My team did about 100 transactions a year when I was in full production. I still have the team now. And of course, as a coach, we will do instruction and we'll do coaching at the same time. So it's going to be a really fun day, I promise.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you, Carl. Carl's a real deal. He's done a lot of business. And I think you said June 16th.
Yeah,
But
it's 17,
we
right?
have the 17th. Yep.
Yeah, it's a
So
17.
just in case you guys wrote down the 16th up here, we've got the
It's a
17th.
17.
You can register. So we sent out an email on this. It has a clickable register button, and we'll get it on our group Facebook page as well for you guys to see that. So Carl, thank you for your time and explaining that. This will be a great listing clinic to get your business going.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you guys.
Thank you. Okay. This is now on. So speaking of listings, we're on part 4 of our local listing expert here. We've got Lee Stern. She's been doing an amazing job when we've been getting a lot of good feedback on that. So if you haven't been a part of that, then sign up for Carl's. We want to keep the listings pushing. If I didn't mention this last week, but you guys need a round of applause for yourselves. From February to March, your listings taken just about doubled for the office. Yeah, that's a big deal. In this market, listings taken for the office just about doubled. And it stayed consistent after that. So keep that going. We have social media marketing, Instagram for beginners on May 27th. Our very own Lori Erickson is heading that up. And we've got market of the moment. We got strategy from Rich Summers. He is excellent and a great instructor. And also for those who need CE, this is a mandatory residential course. So we all need this. I believe that if you haven't taken this course by 2020, I believe that's what it said on the website. So if you don't have it on your books with at least last year, then odds are you probably need it, because it is something that you do need to take a few times. So this is 3 hours core CE. Curtis Bullock, he's the CEO of the Salt Lake Board of Realtors. We invited him to come in here and do it in person for us, for just our office. So space is limited, so plan on that. Again, this is all in the email that you guys have either seen or will see again. Yes. Excellent. Yep. If you didn't hear that, we're up to 28, max of 50. So push and shove, people. Just kidding. Okay, client appreciation event. If you guys, hopefully this is on your radar and you're working with your SOI. So we want you guys to invite your clients. This is a great event and a great excuse to love on your people. And we've got costs extremely low for this. So the only cost for your clients be $3. I mean, the cost per person is $3. Yep. And well, space is, we do have a limited number of tickets, but we do, we need to have an idea of who's coming. So yes, we do need to reserve it up ahead of time. Yeah, we don't want that to be let's plan on just letting anyone come, because then it'll be chaos and a mess. And honestly, we might have problems if that happens. But if there's some people that happened with, I know some of my SOI with Corn Bellies, and it works out if you really push, you get everyone done up front or registered. And if you don't know Splash Summit, that is the it was formerly known as the thank you, Seven Peaks in Provo. So pretty awesome event, way inexpensive for like if you were to try to rent out the whole park for yourself. So take advantage of this; it'll be great. Okay, we're gonna just to get to our panel here. These things are important, but just always want to remind ourselves of what we believe in here in Keller Williams. And let's get to our finances of wealth building. So, why don't you guys come up and come and join us up here. I'm going to get these a little bit more in the screen view. So we have, okay, hopefully that all works. So we've got, of course, Brock Lassig. You guys know him. We've got Alberto. He is representing America First Credit Union. He's going to be talking about HELOCs. We've got Corey, Corey, there you are. Oh, you are on. Perfect. Okay, we see you. You are on mute. Do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself? Just so we can check to make sure it's working. Excellent. We can hear you.
Perfect.
Okay, so we know that you can't see all of us, but we have a room full of about 5,000 people here. I'm teasing, maybe 30, 40 people or so. So welcome, Corey. And we have Jeremy right over here. He is talking about CPA and accounting, and Scott Sherman, our financial coach. Yeah, come on up because we saved a seat for you too. Tell us your name. You're not on the, I didn't announce you.
My name is
Haley. Haley, perfect. Okay, and we've got Haley also with America First. So let's just take 3 to 5 minutes. Why don't you tell us about yourself? We'll go down the line, and then Corey will come to you last, right after we have Scott. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your specialty, and then what we'll do from there while they are talking. Think about your questions for them individually. We really wanted to get a well-rounded picture for everyone for specific questions on different areas that you guys will run into when it comes to investing or just financing, or some of these will be good for your clients as well. But think about your questions, write them down. We'll have 3 to 5 minute introductions and what they want to say. And then we'll open it up for questions after that for anyone in the group. Okay, so that's kind of the. This is the 3 to 5 minutes right now. Yep. This is a quick. Yep. 3 to 5 minutes for everyone, and then I'll skip you, and then he'll hand that down to you. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi everybody. I'm Brock Lassig. I know most people here. I'm a regular just mortgage lender. I do some other things. I'm an investor on the side. I do some hard money stuff too. So I feel like I've got the mindset of what you need when thinking through real estate investing just in general. But my discussion today, or my part of the discussion today is revolving around how you can use traditional mortgage financing to help investors acquire real estate and turn it into a lucrative investment. So hopefully you guys have questions, because I didn't really have a lot of guidance on what exactly I should talk about, which is probably intentional. But the ideas I came up with just in working with my people that are investors is, one really cool strategy is second homes. So we talked a lot about Airbnb stuff last week, and that can be purchased as a second home with 10% down and still rented out as an investment property. The only caveats are to that, and this is really extraordinary for parts of Utah to do this. A lot of people go to Bear Lake, St. George, up in Summit County, a bunch of random places, but 10% down. The caveats are they have to occupy the home for at least 2 weeks out of every calendar year. So they have to actually use it as a second home. And they cannot use the rental income from that purchase to qualify for the purchase. Down the road, if they turn it into, like, let's just say 5 years down the road, they bought a different second home and they no longer use this one as a second home. In the future, as long as the income's claimed on taxes, they could use that rental income to qualify for future purchases, but the rental income on the subject purchase would not be applicable. My probably favorite one that I talk about a lot, and I think a lot of us miss the mark when we're talking about investors. We get fixed on this idea of like, these are flippers, or these are people that have a ton of cash to go buy a bunch of properties and different things. But the reality is, 90 something percent of the home buyers aren't those people. So why not create a larger pie to eat from, and teach people how to acquire a portfolio of real estate by, my favorite strategy is buying primary residence with very little or maybe no money down. And then 1 year later, turning it into an investment and doing it again. They could do it every single year up until they hit their limits. And then things change. We've got programs that allow people to finance up to 20 properties. So, there's, as they evolve, things will change, but I think that's an extraordinary one. Multi-unit is really cool too. So like if they're first-time home buyers, you could buy an FHA home, even a fourplex. You could buy in Salt Lake, you could buy up to a $900,000 fourplex or 903,000, something like that, put 3.5% down. And now they could buy 4 doors and own a fourplex. And that only counts as one financed property. So that's only one of their 10 under agency. So the point there is, look at all these home buyers and become an advisor to create this pool of investors. If they have interest, they could be those people with the millions of dollars to invest into real estate in the future. So I think maybe create more of that opportunity for you and your business and your clients. Number 3 is along the same lines, but say these are homeowners that already own real estate, but want to own more real estate and don't have a ton of accessible cash, or a ton of liquid cash just sitting in checking or savings. The tactics we use a lot for that is leveraging other real estate, mostly by way of cash out refinance, not a lock all the time. That might be a short-term option, but I'm a fan of a cash out refi and then maybe bridging the difference with a HELOC. But if you can get more of the funding that you need to acquire this real estate on a long-term fixed rate and term, that's a more, in my opinion, a more prudent way of going about that process, as opposed to having, some sort of variable payment on a HELOC or a higher interest rate fixed HELOC. However, I often supplement that strategy with a HELOC. And then also retirement funds. You can take loans from retirement for purchase of real estate, which is another big one to help them become these real estate investors. So I think that's really cool. The 4th is 15% down investment property. So we do have a program where you can just buy a straight up investment property with 15% down and no mortgage insurance. So that's a really good option for the more vanilla investor that just wants to buy a long-term property and use traditional financing to help. Number 5 would be, this one is maybe a little bit more creative, but buying land and holding land and then building a property enables you to use the appraised value of the entire property when you take out your long-term financing. So that's significant because it can reduce the amount of investment. That's most people's goal, is to reduce their out-of-pocket cash to get into a property and obtain the most favorable financing terms. So if you can buy land and build later, you get to use the full appraised value on that. So enjoy the appreciation, which is big in the market that we sit in today. Number 6 is kind of along those lines, but we've had a few clients that have used a collection of these different strategies, but obtain liquidity to buy properties and then redevelop them. So like up in Salt Lake, there's some single family homes that you can easily rezone to like a 2-unit or a 4-unit. And again, the same strategy applies. You probably have to get some hard money or something to make this all come to fruition and then eventually turn it into long-term traditional financing. But the same theory applies to the construction idea, which is there's likely going to be some soft equity built through the acquisition and improvement of that overall site that then you can put into competitive long-term financing. So those are the ideas that I've got as they relate to traditional financing. Is there anything that I've missed that people have questions on as it relates to traditional mortgage financing and real estate investing?
if it's okay, we might have to wait. So write
Oh,
down
yeah.
your questions.
Cool.
Because we want to make sure that we have, a few minutes for everyone, and then we'll open it up for all of them.
All right. Well, hello. My name is Haley. I work with America First Credit Union as well. We're just at this branch, actually. We're just right next to you guys. So we're off of 104 and about Bangerter, next to the Costco. So I'll let Bo really introduce a lot of what we're going to be talking about, but we are going to be discussing second mortgages, namely on investment properties. So home equity lines of credit and close-ended home equity products that we have.
Perfect. Yeah, so with the home equity, we offer non-owner occupied home equity loans. We have a few different products for it. So just depending on what your needs are, we offer one that goes up to 80% of the value, one that goes over 60%. We'll cover as well as the closing cost with the loan. In addition to the closing process, funding process, and the time frame that takes. Should we go over the whole product, or are we just going?
What you think would spur a few questions for there. So maybe, if you want to dive
Okay,
into a
perfect.
little bit, you can do that.
Yeah. So again, we offer a line of credits for non-owner occupied. So they do have to be owned by the individual. And so we can offer line of credit options. We offer 10, 15-year mortgage rate options. Depending on your credit score, the rates are going to fluctuate. Based on that, we do offer fixed and variable rate options. And then closing, there's no closing cost aside from the fees that you would pay for the title fees that you would pay with it. After that, we fund pretty quick, probably within about 24 hours to 48 hours. We'll fund on your loan. Application process takes about 14 days from start to finish on that.
My name is Jeremy Lemke. I'm a CPA with Davies Allen, which is a small public accounting firm here in the northern part of the state. Tyler had asked me to come talk a little bit about some tax saving strategies related to real estate investment properties, and specifically what's called cost segregation. So basically this kind of revolves around depreciation, and not to kind of repeat anything that you guys already know, but I think it's important to kind of lay the ground. But depreciation is basically just this annual deduction you're allowed to take over the life of an asset. And these are predetermined lives, set by the Internal Revenue Service or generally accepted accounting principles. But typically, for financial reporting, depreciation is taken on a straight line method. So property, it might be worth $5,000. It's got a 5-year life. You can take $1,000 of expense each year over the life of that property. What a cost segregation study does is it pulls apart the components of real estate. So either like commercial rentals or residential rentals, which typically have long-term lives of 27.5 years or 39 years that you're taking the depreciation over. When they break apart those components, they try to separate it into property classes that have lives of 5, 7, or 15, really anything under 20 years, because under the IRS codes, depreciation can be accelerated for tax purposes. And specifically with the TCJA, they passed 100% bonus depreciation in the first year of properties with lives less than 20 years. So kind of to give an example of how this would work is if you have a $300,000 home that you're renting out, you typically would take depreciation over 27.5 years, roughly 11 grand a year. But let's say a cost segregation study occurs on the property and breaks the cost down into 5-year, 15-year. Let's say if it's a $300,000 property and they decide that 17% of it is 5-year property and 2% of it is 15-year property. Now you're separating that $300,000 into $51,000 5-year property, $6,000 15-year property, and then the remaining $243,000 would be the 27.5 year. This allows you to take that additional depreciation on the 5 and 15 year. So instead of taking $11,000 in depreciation year to year, you can now take $65,000 in that first year. And by taking that difference of $54,000 of additional depreciation that you are allowed and multiplying that by your effective tax rate, you just saved almost 11 grand in taxes. So that's kind of the general concept. Hopefully it makes some sense.
Hey there, excuse me. I'm Scott Sherman. I'm a financial coach with Live Your Way Financial Coaching. What I do is I help people figure out how to save more money, how to budget, how to manage their daily finances, which is super important if you're trying to afford an investment or you're trying to see whether you can actually make an investment, do more of what you want with your goals. My wife and I do own nightly rentals that we run in Lava Hot Springs, Idaho, and we're about to close on a second one in Grand Junction. So I understand that side of the market too. Tyler asked me to talk about, if you're not ready to invest or somebody who wants to invest but isn't ready, how can they get there? So here's some warning signs that maybe you're not quite ready to invest. If you're carrying credit card debt or you have loans over 7%, those are probably things you should take care of before you start investing. If you have periods where you're living paycheck to paycheck, if you're struggling to save more than a few $1,000s, if you don't know what your overall goals are, if you're going to invest, you need to know why you're investing. If you're trying to invest because you're scared you're going to miss out, that's not a good reason. You shouldn't be spending that kind of money in that state of mind. If your business and your personal finances are so intertwined that you don't really know the difference, that's probably a warning sign that you really need to get that cleaned up first. And if your spouse or your partner doesn't share the vision as to why you want to invest, that's something you need to get cleared up first. So how do you get ready to do that? How do you get ready to invest? I think first you need to get your money management locked down. You really need to understand what are your expenses, what's your income, what are the things you have coming up, and how does that all fit into your goals? You need to build up a regular savings, both for your personal side and for investments. You can't build up a regular savings. That's a big red flag. You need to figure out what kind of investor you want to be. Some of these types were mentioned earlier, but are you going to be a buy and hold? Are you going to be a flipper? Do you want to do single family, multifamily, apartment building? Do you want to be hands-on, hands-off, in-state, out-of-state? There's so many options. You want to know what you're going to do before you go down that road. And then really look before you leap. I think you don't want to chase something that you don't understand. So you need to know, how is this going to affect your taxes? That's a huge part of it, right? Don't go buy something if you don't know what it's going to do to your taxes in the short term and the long term. How's it going to affect your ability to fund other areas? Maybe you're trying to save for kids' college. How is this going to dovetail with that? How will it fit into your overall financial goals? Do you have a certain age you want to retire? Do you have a certain income that you need to meet in that? Do you know what this investment is going to do to increase or decrease your overall risk profile? You may need to take on, a whole different set of insurance because you're putting yourself at great risk, or you may need to segregate legally different business entities. That's a big factor. How much of your time and energy do you need to put into this? That's another way that you can decide whether, the type of investment you think you want is really right for you. What does success look like? And on the flip side, what does it look like when you're not going to find success? Know how to get an exit strategy out of your investment. And really to understand whether there are better options that are suited to your long-term goals. So as a financial coach, that's the kind of thing that I help people figure out. How do we manage our money? What are our goals? What are the things that we can do to move the money more toward the goals that we have so that we're successful with what we want to do? So if anybody wants to talk more about that, happy to go over individual situations with people.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Corey?
Hi, Scott, I thought that was great advice, by the way. I was pretty impressed with that. Knowing when you're ready to invest, I think that's really important. So good. Liked what you said there. I'm Corey Dutton. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can hear you great. Yep.
Okay, perfect. I'm a private money lender in Utah. My company is called Private Money Utah, licensed under Wolf Creek Mortgage. We've been in business for 13 years. Under new Utah licensing laws that have been in effect for quite some time, hard money lenders even have to be licensed. So it's good for you and dealing with your clients. You don't want to hand your clients over to a potential, predatory hard money lender that could put your clients in a bad position and then you get blamed. So definitely use a reputable, licensed private money lender on all your transactions and those for your clients. I definitely would tell you that. We have 5-star reviews on Google and no complaints on Better Business Bureau for 13 years. We work primarily with real estate investors, but for you realtors out there that are also helping your clients buy homes in this market, there are a lot of tools that you can use. in the private money realm to help your clients accomplish their goals, and you also making more money and closing more deals. You definitely have to get with a licensed private money lender, hard money lender to do these types of transactions, because you're talking about owner occupied and not investment. But definitely there are tools for you. I'll finish with those tools for your home buyer clients at the end of this little spiel I'm going to give you here about what I can do for you as investors and helping your clients who are investors. You know, we don't do any traditional mortgages. So we're solely focused on investment property purchases, fix and flip, residential development, commercial loans, multifamily apartment complexes, all your investment property stuff. We are extremely effective as a tool for you and your clients in this competitive environment, because you can't get anything without offering cash. The benefit of bridge loans and hard money loans that a lot of you may not realize is the speed of funding. You're not having to get appraisals on these properties. You're talking about quick lending decisions that can happen in 24 to 48 hours. And they're closing very much like cash. So definitely get with me and talk to me after this call about, you know, how do you submit your offers, and how do you design that? Because it's definitely an art that you as realtors need to learn and understand to do well, to succeed at it. But it's not complicated. And then transactional funding, a lot of you may not know what that is. Huge tool for how the rich get richer. Finding a property that you can, you know, have sold before you even buy it yourself. How do you accomplish that? Well, if you don't have all the cash to close on it and then sell it in a few days or a week or a few months, whatever it is, you've got to get what's called a transactional loan. And what is that? It basically allows you to have an A to B contract and a B to C contract on a property that you can close and sell on the same day. So definitely let's talk more about that if that's something you're interested in learning more about, because again, it's a tool for how the rich get richer. If you've got a property that you can buy from an estate for $1 million this week, and you've already got a few buyers interested, or maybe even one under contract for 1.3, if you don't have the $1 million to close it this week, you can contact a hard money lender like myself and get that done. That's called a transactional funding loan. Other than that, I just want to close with tools for you with your home buyers. Those are called bridge loans, and those are primarily used in two capacities. We can provide those as a licensed mortgage company on owner occupied properties. What is that? So there's two ways you can do it. Let's say you've got a home buyer that has a home with equity in it, but they're looking to buy another home. As the mortgage brokers know that are here on this panel, it's very difficult to do that because you've got all your equity locked up in the current home and you're trying to buy the new home. So what we can do is a bridge loan, and it's called a bridge loan for relocation. Basically what we do is we take the equity from the current home. We're going to do a second mortgage on that home that they live in behind the first mortgage. And then we're going to do a new first mortgage on the home they're buying. So they don't need to bring any money to closing if they have equity in the current home here, that's spread. So we can allow them to buy that same as cash until they sell their current home here. So that's a good tool. It's called a bridge loan for relocation. We're doing a ton of those, as you can imagine right now. The other loan that we're doing in this competitive market for home buyers is just basically a hard money loan that looks like cash. And what it is it's just a cash offer with private money. And then we're going to close in days. As soon as the due diligence ends, we can close. Or if there's no due diligence, we can still close. So it's a matter of days. We also fund auctions. So that's one other thing under the investment property loans that I forgot to mention. When I was talking about speed of funding, we can fund those in 24 hours. But don't let me digress. I'll complete with the home buyers. In this competitive market, it's super hard for these guys and gals to buy homes. So this is a tool for you to help your clients to get more properties under contract, even if they have a current home that they're trying to sell, or they don't have a home and they just or have financing. They don't have all cash. This is a way to allow them to purchase these properties with cash, and then they can refinance with their traditional mortgage within, I mean, I've seen them get me paid off in 3 weeks. The traditional mortgage brokers are able to do that. So did anybody have any questions? I know I kind of talked on, speed, fast forward, but did anybody have any questions for me?
Excellent. What I think we are at that. So if yes,
Oh.
if we have questions for anyone, let's open it up. Hopefully you wrote some down. So we'll open it up for anyone, and Corey, we'll try to ask you to unmute if we've got the question there for you as well. So I have questions here, but I'd rather them come from you if you have something here. But yeah, let me bring it to you.
And I'm not sure if this is for Corey or the HELOC specialists or even Brock, but what about a current homeowner that has maybe 150 in equity, which is not enough to purchase the next home? What's the best way of doing that as a bridge? Like pull that equity out so they don't have to sell their primary home until they get into home B. But then there's going to have to be another loan, right? So I'm not real sure how to coordinate something like that. Does that make sense?
On our bridge loan, you don't have to pull the cash out. We would just do a second lien on that collateral, that house that they currently own, and then we would do a new first mortgage on the home they're buying. So if they have enough equity, and it does, the numbers do work out, we'd have to do the numbers, which would take literally 2 minutes. But if they do have enough equity there in that current home, then they don't have to bring any money to closing, and that would include closing costs. So we're doing a lot of those right now because we have buyers that have a ton of equity. They just cannot get a loan until they pay off that mortgage that they have on their current home.
We have a question on loan to value on that. Do you have a regulation on that side?
Great question. Wow. Good question, because most people miss that point. Prices are so high that the value is relative right now, as you all know in this room and can quite well understand. So yes, I want my first and second mortgage combined to be no larger than 75% of the value of their current home. So proposed first mortgage and second mortgage on the current home that they own would be no more than 75% of the value.
And then 100% on the purchase side. Is that
Yep.
right?
That's right.
Awesome. What are the questions? Or
Oh,
more
no,
on that one?
So yeah, more on that one. So if you use your primary residence to tap into that equity, rates are going to be favorable. For that, you can use the proceeds for, to make your other purchase. You would have to find a source for the remainder of the funds, but you can tap into the equity. We can go up to 100% of your current home's value. And then depending on, the different rates or the different types of products that you want to go, we can look into those avenues.
That would be a cheaper alternative to look into for your clients.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as it relates to these clients buying and trying to navigate this difficult market, I think it's important getting a traditional lender to look at, even like whether it be a HELOC or maybe they only have 5% down and they think they need more, or they need to invest all of their equity in. Often it's an idea they have in their mind that's restricting them, and maybe they can just as well qualify. And then if they don't want the high payment long term on the home they're acquiring, once they sell their home, they can do a principal reduction and a recast on that mortgage, and both eliminate the PMI and drop the payment on the remaining term. So I think one of the first resources should for sure be a lender, and then have these other things in the wings if we strike out, on traditional financing.
Good question. Anyone else have a question? Yep. Got to speak in the mic so Corey can hear you over Zoom.
Great. So can you touch just a little bit more on, if you have investment properties or rental properties, on being able to tap into the equity on those, the timing and some of the restrictions on being able to utilize that equity as well?
I'll let them, just quickly, you can go generally cash out up to 75% loan to value on a long-term mortgage. And there is a seasoning of 6 months required from acquisition of the property to when you're doing the new loan, when you're closing the new loan. So 75%, and then I'll pass it to them. But an idea that I often recommend is stacking a HELOC onto that.
So we offer financing for non-owner occupied as well. So we have different products ranging from 65 to 80% loan to value as a combined total with your first. So for waiting period, as long as the mortgage is, if we have a statement or we can show the note for it, we can start doing that immediately. Rescission period, so like Bo had mentioned, so timeline that we're looking at about 2 weeks from start to finish, and then there's no rescission period. So once we have the deed record, we'll fund those. So we have both open and close-ended options, again with that 65 and 80% loan to value. So depending, there's fixed rates, but if you're looking at a home equity line, we're looking at variable rates. Excuse me. So they're looking right now at as low as 5.24%, but you are going to be a little bit higher on a non-owner occupied than an owner occupied as of right now. So the 5.24%, if it was a 10-year or lower on a closed-ended term, they may be fixed.
On the HELOC side, a question on there. If I've had people ask in the past, if times get tough and let's say a 2008 happens, what would happen on a HELOC? Could that be frozen where you can't pull it out? Or have you seen something like that happen before? Is that something we can still rely on if times get tough?
So with that, the credit union does have the ability to, you have a 5-year, I guess, evaluation period. So the credit line, you have it indefinitely. But the credit union does have the right to review the repayment history every 5 years. Based on that, they would determine after that 5 years, should they want to turn that into a closed-end loan or just continue with the credit line. I personally have never seen them close out one for it, but I guess it depends on what somebody's repayment history looks like before they decide whether they want to remove that limit on that credit line, and then it just turns into a term loan at that point. Did that answer that question?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. If so, let's say the market crashed today, for example, tomorrow, could we rely on HELOC?
Yeah. So
funds
you can
to-
still
to
rely on the
pull out?
HELOC. Simply, it's just going to depend on the how the repayment on that HELOC has been. So should that continue in a positive manner, most likely that credit line will just continue to stay open.
Excellent. Thanks.
So talking more about the HELOCs. So say you have a client that may or may not need the assistance of a HELOC and you're trying to get them to market, you're trying to figure out if you can find them property. To me, it would make sense to get their HELOC lined up early on, even if they don't need it. But if they don't need it, are there costs involved? How does that look? How does it look in getting that all put together? And if they don't pull on it, do you recommend that they keep it open? Do they close it back out? What's the best way to handle that?
Right. On the HELOC, so you can keep it open. As far as cost goes, it's going to really depend on whether it's an owner occupied or non-owner occupied. There's no fees for an owner occupied property tapping into that credit line. Non-owner occupied, there is going to be cost involved, which is going to be the fees that we pay the title company, which can range anywhere between about $178 to a couple $1,000s on there, just based on the property. But non-owner occupied, owner occupied and non-owner occupied, should they want to use, they can line it up. There's no fee to apply for it. The only fee that comes into place is once everything starts closing, then they'll pay a fee for it. So there's no application fee. On the prepayment penalty, we call it a reconveyance fee, which they just agree if they close out the limit, they can keep it at a zero balance. But should they close out, remove the limit completely, then they do have to pay back the fees that we paid the title companies. Max was going to be $250 on those fees.
And I would say, from a financial coaching perspective, it does make sense for somebody who maybe is struggling to get that and they may or may not need a HELOC. It's good to have that HELOC open, because when you start paying and incurring costs on your rental, if you don't have a good backup for it, that HELOC can be your buffer, which I actually ended up using that myself when COVID first hit and I was doing a nightly rental and suddenly I had 3 months where nobody was staying in it. I went, I can put this on a HELOC and it's going to be less risk to me and keep my cash flow still there. And then repaid it back when things started to open up again. So it's a good sort of, guardrail for people who are just getting into it to maybe have that HELOC available if they need to borrow on it.
Yeah. So for you or for clients, it doesn't hurt to have a HELOC ready to go. But also for a client, they can do it concurrently. That's something that I personally just dealt with about a month ago, 2 months ago. So if you get a home under contract, you don't want to sell their current house or make it contingent, then you can get it done concurrently and have the HELOC ready to go in time. Just keep dropping the mic.
Brock, I'm curious on your thoughts as far as if I wanted to buy a second home, what is your opinion on rather taking out a HELOC or doing a cash out refinance? What should I be taking into consideration if I'm wanting to do that? Because my original thought was to do a HELOC, but I don't know if a cash out, if that would up my rate and I'd owe more. Just kind of touch on that.
Yeah, good. My general opinion is that if you intend to carry that debt long-term and you don't have a short-term plan to eliminate the HELOC debt, if it's not on a fixed rate and term, in my opinion, it's risky. If we start seeing, or probably rather when we start seeing rates go up, HELOC rates will start to increase. So I'm always a fan of refinancing other debt, even if you do sacrifice a little bit in the rate. I mean, it's probably not a lot, and getting it on a fixed rate and term, that's my normal suggestion.
If somebody just wanted to pay that HELOC off as soon as they could and just take the proceeds from the monthly rents and just put it all to the HELOC and pay it off as soon as possible, would that be a better route to go? Or would you
I
still?
think maybe that's where Scott comes in. But it just depends, because do you really I don't know, do you want to be investing all of that cash flow back to the HELOC if you could theoretically get long-term debt on a cash out refi, and now you have this cash flow to invest in other things and, in a sense, just create more value from that. So it depends on what your goal would be.
Yeah, it sounds like if you want more leverage, then maybe a traditional loan. If you want more equity and pay it off, the HELOC might be a better route in general. That's
Yeah,
kinda
just
what I
so long as you have a clear plan so that things don't get out of control.
When you first started and you talked about the difference between when you do an investment property and if like a second home loan, can you just tell me, I'm pretty new to all this.
Yeah.
Like what's the difference between getting a second home loan, an investment loan? And
Yeah.
which, because,
Good question, because I actually, right as you were asking that question, realized I forgot a caveat in that. So the second home option, I've vetted out a lot, and I did a lot of those in St. George on a project that I was working with. But the second home, the caveat, so you can do 10% down, which is the really cool part about buying a second home. And you could theoretically, like VRBO or Airbnb that. The caveats are that you have to occupy for 2 weeks out of each year. And the one that I missed was that you have to control the occupancy of the unit. So you can't turn it over to a property management company where they control the occupancy. And you can't put it on a long-term lease agreement because now you no longer control the occupancy. So yeah, like VRBO or Airbnb. Rates are better and the down payment is lower. Yeah, so overall just costs are better on that. Yes, that's right. You cannot use, so if you're doing that, you can't use the rental income from that second home, which might also double as an investment property. You can't use that to qualify on the acquisition. Yep.
Can you do a joint tenancy on that second property?
Yeah, we've had multiple like parties. We've had couples buy properties together and things. Yeah.
Okay.
It's more the honor system. You're signing legal documents that say you'll do it. So if you don't, then you're. No, yeah. But I don't think they go like knock the door every day to make sure it's, yeah.
I have a, yeah, I have a question for our CPA. So when it comes to the cost segregation analysis, how do you even go about getting one of those? What do they typically run? Like, and what is typically the payoff, well, return on investment for spending the money on that analysis?
Yeah, good question. So typically we actually we outsource to another company to handle the cost segregations. It does require someone who is, I don't know the exact title, but some sort of certified cost segregation specialist. And so typically we see those run, just depending on the company, for like a residential rental, somewhere between $1,500 and $3,000. That's just the one time, when you run the cost seg study in that year. And then, like I had kind of mentioned in the example, you just kind of look at what the tax savings are going to be there to see if it makes sense. So in that example, saving $11,000 in taxes, but having to spend $1,500 to $3,000 to run it, you end up with a decent margin there. So does that help? Yeah.
Which, if you're trying to plan things out cash wise, your down payment, that will help. I mean, in essence, your net outcome on that investment, that should help recoup some costs on your down payment that you're saving on taxes.
Hey, just to clarify on that, on the cost segregation, you're really just accelerating depreciation. You're not actually making more money because you're just getting it quicker.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. You're taking it up front basically in the first year. So,
Which, tell us, if you're looking to flip, or let's say that you've got a property, you're going to buy it and you plan on selling it in a year, maybe 2 years. Is there a time frame that you would suggest it makes sense? Yes or no?
It really, when it comes to the gain and loss aspect of it, the primary residence is usually where that exclusion comes through. When you're looking at kind of the real estate investment properties, they just look at it. What did you pay for it? What did you take in depreciation? What are you selling it for? And you're going to pay tax on that gain.
Kind of like recapturing on an auto loan type thing, right?
Is there a recapture when you
Certain
sell it?
amounts of depreciation. We could spend an entire afternoon talking about, different types, but to keep it simple, yes, some you recapture, yes.
I'm assuming if you sell the property that you did this cost segregation study on and did a 1031 exchange, you wouldn't have any tax to pay on that depreciation, right?
Right. Yep. If you run the 1031 exchange, then potentially in the future, because the 1031 again is kind of just a tax deferral, until at some point down the road when you're no longer moving it into another property.
So kind of follow up with that. So if you take it all in 1 year, then you're also saying, okay, I'm not really taking any of this benefit the following years, right? So I guess you kind of have to look at what's.
Yeah, there is a portion of that. So a lot of times just with depreciation, rental, activity typically results in a loss a lot of the time, just because of the depreciation, kind of regardless. And then all the other expenses you can take, your mortgage interest, real estate taxes, any sort of repairs, utilities on the property. The depreciation usually gets you kind of in the negative, even in the following years when you're just depreciating that 27 and a half year remaining value on the building. So, and that's from a cash flow standpoint that you're in the negative, because depreciation is a non-cash expense. So,
Which is how a lot of the very wealthy people save money on taxes, right?
Exactly. Yes.
What other questions do you have as we're getting close to wrapping up? Yep, go ahead.
So if you get a lot loan as a second home loan or investment loan, can it change when you're like going past your construction loan into your permanent financing? Or does it need to be set with your lot loan?
No, it theoretically could change. Yeah. Lot loans it could change.
Along those lines, I've had the question before. If you have a property, let's say it's 5 acres, you have a house, you get traditional regular financing on it, you split it off, sell the land. How does that work? Or if you want to bring land you buy a parcel next door, how does that work in adding or subtracting out your loan? And do you have to let your lender know?
So as far as I understand it, if you acquire more land, the lender doesn't need to approve that. However, because of the due on sale clause on basically all mortgage notes, if you subdivide and sell the property that is secured by the mortgage, you do have to get the lender's approval on it. And they may or may not require a principal reduction, just depending on what the value is. But you may, like I just had a client just barely have to do that. They had to make a principal reduction in order to sell off part of the land they subdivided from their original parcel.
I'm coming.
This question is for Corey. Corey, can you explain with hard money loans, do your loans count towards a personal 10 loan limit?
Okay, so do you mean on your credit?
I don't know. I just know that there's this.
She's at, so and your name to your.
Yeah, on agency financing, you can have
Right.
10.
So do hard money loans, because of the nature of them, they're licensed, but are they the same structure? Do they count towards that personal limit of 10 loans in your name?
No, it does not. It does not go on your credit.
And just to be clear, if it's in an LLC, it wouldn't count. If it was in your personal name, even if it's not on credit, it would technically count.
That's true in terms of if you would have to disclose that debt, right? Is that what you
Yep.
mean, Brock?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Corey, I had a question for you. Can you give us a general rundown on points and fees and interest on your programs?
For sure, for sure. So, and that's another thing I forgot to mention. We're definitely one of the lowest cost private money lenders in Utah. My interest rates start at 9.5%. For my most risky deals, I'm doing my highest rate is 12.5%. That's an interest only rate. And then my points and fees are really low as well. Usually 1 point, 2 points. If it's under 100,000, we do just a flat fee in lieu of points.
Cool.
Yeah, and then one thing I did want to mention real quick, guys, that I wanted to be clear on. So let's say your clients or you wanted to use a HELOC and you wanted to pull money out of a property to buy, another property. You still are going to need the loan to buy the other properties because you're taking that down payment from the HELOC on the current property and you're buying the new one. So you would need to get approved with Brock or a mortgage broker for that first mortgage on the home that you're buying. And if, for example, Brock says to you, until you sell the current home, I cannot approve you for the first mortgage on the new home. In that case, that's where we would arrange the bridge loan, where we would do a first and you would bring the down payment in from the HELOC, and then you're going to buy the new property with that. The other way is how I described. I do a second on the current property and a first, and then you don't do the HELOC. But with the HELOC, you're still going to need that first mortgage on the new home purchase or the investment property purchase. So you would need to get that from Brock and get pre-approved for that. So when you have the down payment money, then you can buy it. Or you would need to get a bridge loan from me with the new first mortgage on the property you're buying.
How would that affect your qualifying for the first? And I'm Brock's in, so Brock. for you.
Yeah, so that'll change. Corey, I do have a question real quick, just so I can answer Cindy's. Do you guys require an approval from us before you'll fund your bridge?
No, I don't. I want to make sure that they have the ability to repay before I do that loan, but I'm not going to require them to have an approval from you. I will evaluate it and make sure that I feel like there's a good exit strategy for them, but I don't require that.
Got it. Yeah, right. So to your question, I think the idea here would be if this bridge loan happened, they would have acquired the current residence. They have basically 100% financing on it, and they vacate the other one, and then you sell it. And then upon selling that, they refinance the new acquisition that was with Corey's, Corey, right? Yeah. Corey's loan at 100% loan to value. They would refinance that debt onto a long-term mortgage after they've sold the home they vacated, which would have paid her second mortgage off.
But Brock, I think maybe I'm wondering this and other people may be as well. What if they went and got a HELOC and they pulled that cash out? Would that affect their ability to qualify for the permanent mortgage with you, the 30-year mortgage?
To eliminate the bridge loan on the new acquisition. right? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so like if they pulled that HELOC out, it just gets eliminated upon the sale of the home. It all gets eliminated, but would it affect their ability to qualify for you? Would that be a contingency for you?
That depends. So it could be a contingency. However, there's something we've used in the past, as long as they're using a conventional loan for the purchase of the new one. If they go under contract on the sale, even if there is a HELOC and a first mortgage, doesn't matter. If they go under contract and they surpass for their buyer of their sale, due diligence and financing and appraisal, and they're basically just waiting on settlement, we can exclude all the debt on that vacating residence and close on the first mortgage on the new one. So there is a way around it. It's just very particular to the circumstance.
Good to know.
For America, so like for the credit union, could you do the HELOC for the down payment and also do the first mortgage? And
Like-
then it would get sold after the property's sold.
Like
Okay.
financing both or
Yeah,
just the home equity?
Right.
So I guess, yes, you could. Because a lot of the branch level, we're going to handle your second mortgages for you. We're going to do those home equity lines. You wouldn't have, for example, like the same loan officer doing those concurrently together because closing processes are going to be different and one is going to be faster than the other. But yes, I would have to clarify, but I don't see why not. You would be able to do both if we're, yeah.
I think it's just a speed issue, like she was kind of alluding to. Is it really in this competitive market, if you want to get a home to buy or any property for that matter, investment, whatever, you've got to pay cash. I mean, you can't wait for financing. I mean, I know these guys though have products available to them that are quicker and faster because I did hear 2 weeks in there, and I know Brock can fund pretty quickly on certain products. So it just depends. It depends on how fast of a close it is on the purchase of the investment property or the new home.
Excellent. Great questions. Anything last burning questions? Haven't been able to. Is it for Corey? Sorry, Corey's the only one that can hear through the mic.
So this question is to all of you. So at the end of the day, is the cost of doing HELOCs, hard money, whatever, to make it a cash buy, is that going to be more cost effective to my buyer than just offering a higher price and financing it? Is speed the only thing that's really being offered by the cash out? And how do you see that value?
I'll go first. The way I see it is if Corey's loan is cheaper, like her loan at worst costs like 2 and 12, and say it takes them 45 days to convert that hard money loan into a long-term loan, they're going to pay, 3 points or whatever above what their acquisition was to acquire that. So if you're needing to offer more than 3% above the list price or whatever you could get it if you were a cash buyer, then it would be a benefit to do it that way. If you had to, for example, offer 5% over, but you could get it at list price and just get the hard money loan, it would only cost you an extra 3%. So they would have profited essentially 2% by being a cash buyer. I don't know if you have other clarification, Corey, on that.
That makes total sense to me. I think you just hit the nail on the head there, Brock. Good one. Because I am going to be your most expensive option for your clients typically out of this whole entire group. But for us, it's more of a speed thing. That's the value that we bring to the table.
Yeah, it's ease speed with you. And yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we offer a little bit of a middle ground on there. It's pretty speedy, but rates you're looking at are not going to be as high, obviously, depending on the credit score of what your borrower is. So it is nice that they can tap into that equity and get it fairly quickly. But like we were saying too, if it's a non-owner occupied, they're not going to have to pay anything if they pay that off early anyway. So they have no fees involved that way. And fees we're looking at, even if it was owner occupied, even with appraisals, we're looking to be, well, I guess it could be around $600 up to a couple thousand. So depending on what their needs are, I think it's a good option for them to explore.
And then we'll finish with this one.
Sorry, and this one might actually be more either for you, Tyler, or even for you, Rich. If we take one of these avenues like a hard money or whatever, can we legally put in an offer as a cash offer, or do we need to disclose that it's a hard money loan coming in on that?
Broker Rich, you want to take this one? I'll give you a different answer if we plug his ears.
I mean, if it's not approved by the hard money or anything, then you still need to disclose it as a loan for sure. If it's guaranteed, then I think it's cash. Yeah.
Great. Okay, let's say thank you very much. And we've got a lot of separate disciplines here and specialties. Please, if you guys have more questions or you'd like more info from each of them individually, please catch them before they walk out. Maybe you can grab their info and see if you want to meet with them or grab anything there. But yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate your guys' time. Thank you, Corey on Zoom as well. I'm looking at you as well. But let's give them all a round of applause. Excellent. Thank you and have a great day.
Hey, Tyler. We brought some business cards for our location. So if you have any questions, our business cards are there and you can meet with any of our loan officers.
You guys can get my contact info on my website, which is privatemoneyutah.com. And my phone number is 435-655-1190. Thanks for having me.
Corey, will you put your number again in the, oh, look in the chat. We've got something coming to you in the chat.
Yeah, and I just gave my phone number and my website out. I didn't know if anybody heard that, but I threw it out there.